3. All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best Self Blueprint. For those of you who do not know, the mission of this podcast is to bring on people with the knowledge, insights, and today especially experiences that will help you move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that means to you. Again, something we're going to go over a lot today. So this guest I actually stumbled upon during a whitewater rafting trip with some friends, a couple of which who have been on the podcast. And he really, I was telling him right before we hopped on, there was this light bulb moment when he said something that we're going to get into. But first, I want to officially introduce Phil Aram. What's up, dude?
Hey guys, my name's Phil. I'm a whitewater rafting guide during the day, and then during the night, I'm a audio producer making music for Spotify and YouTube.
Heck yeah. So yeah, I want to give people a little bit of a background just because this story, I think, just sets up the parameters of like what I wanted to bring you on to talk about. So we're floating down the river. We haven't hit the rapids quite yet. Phil's taking us down the cruising portion, and we're just kind of like asking each other questions, getting to know each other a little bit. And he was telling us his backstory, and I'll let you tell it much more elegantly than I'm about to, Phil. But along the lines of he was at school and just realized, at least my perception of it was, realized that there was this definition of success that didn't resonate with him. And so through a long series of events, he is now, in what I would consider your terms, successful in the eyes of living an adventure, having a fulfilling life through a series of fulfilling days. But there are two things I'm curious about right off the bat. One, when was it that you kind of cultivated your version of success? And then what gave you the courage to kind of step out and pursue it against the social grain?
Well, I think I grew up in sort of like the suburbs of San Diego, like county. And I had a lot of moments where I went over to friends' houses who were a lot more well off than I was. Like I was like the poor kid in the neighborhood, so everybody else's houses were way cooler to hang out at. And when I went over to their place, I'd see like inside the home, like the family or the parents, like who are doctors or lawyers, super high paying jobs, huge house. They weren't actually like happy. They kind of like, I remember one time I was playing, Nintendo Wii with my friend, and his dad comes home and he's just like, looks like he hates his life. And I remember the look on his face, and I was just like, that sucks. Like he's making all like I didn't have a good concept of money at the time, but I just remember thinking like I am not looking forward to being an adult and having to, go to work for the day and then come home just to be exhausted, eat dinner with like a frown on my face, and then go to bed. Like that sounds like a really crappy life that I want to avoid. But what was the question again?
So, and you kind of answered the first part. So it was like, when
Yeah.
did you cultivate your definition of success? Because I think that's really important for people to realize, and why I'm so eager to talk to you about this, because it's easy for someone else to tell you what success is, and then you just go, oh, right, yeah, okay, I guess I'll follow that. But to be able to critically think on a level that allows you to realize what success actually looks like to you in terms of success in cultivating a fulfilling life, it sounds like you had that kind of mental check mark when you saw like the frown on the faces of people who were quote unquote successful. And so for you, that kind of etched in, like, success does not look like that to you, because to you a big chunk of success is consistent joy. So what else was it throughout your life that you kind of like etched in that was like, oh yeah, this means success to me, or this is what people think success looks like to them, that just doesn't make sense?
Yeah. So when I was in 8th grade, I saved up enough money by selling cookies or brownies around my neighborhood, and I finally had this big chunk of change, $450. And next time my mom went to Costco, I went with her in the car and got myself a laptop. And with that laptop, I worked with my older brother who was already 18. He had been doing freelance work, and he got this client that was a person with a huge book, like literally like 11 volumes of book. And he had been hired to do as much audio editing on this audiobook uh, that was recorded like as fast as possible. Like it was just basically an infinite amount of work given to him. So he was like, Phil, you just got this laptop. I'm going to download this program called like RX Audio or something. It was just an audio editing program, and he taught me how to edit audio. And I started like using all my free time when I should have been doing homework. I was doing this podcast editing, and that went on for like a year or so. And I was making like real money, like a normal job. And it was crazy. And I got paid per result, meaning like, um, you know, it might have been uh, $30 per hour of editing, hour of audio. And I realized, holy crap, like I'm making so much money. And when I got into high school, it's pretty popular for the high school counselor to start coming to kids and get them ready to, put in applications for colleges and prepare them for college. And I remember having this talk with my high school counselor because, this is maybe 10th grade now, and I am failing almost every class. And my high school counselor is trying to be nice, but, low key, she's trying to tell me, hey, look, like you're failing at life. You're failing at school, or at least how I interpreted what she was saying is that I'm a failure. I'm failing because I'm getting F's in all these classes. But in my head, I'm just like, dude, I'm like richer than any of these kids next to me because I have money. Like I'm adding value to society. All these kids are doing are listening to the teacher and getting good grades or whatever. Um, but I realized my definition of success is different than these other kids because they think that getting an A is how they're going to succeed in life. And I'm just thinking, this system doesn't cater to me. I don't care about this system. I have a different outlook. I'm trying to like learn skills at this time in my life that are going to profit me in the future. And learning the quadratic equation just doesn't factor into my success. So that's, after I graduated high school, I didn't want to go to college. But I had, to the advice of my high school counselor, I'd filled out all these different, what do you call them, grants that the government of California gives kids. And I qualified for a few grants, and the government of California actually paid me to go to a semester of college, and they would continue to pay for my college, literally giving me like a surplus of money every month just to attend college if I got good grades. But after the first semester, I failed every class because I really did not care about it. And I had this maybe chunk of change of, $3,000 left over. And that's when I just quit college because they weren't going to pay for me anymore to just attend and fail and not attend class. So that's when I drove up to Alaska to start that adventure.
Yeah, man. And I want to preface this with this because there are inevitably going to be people who hear that. And I have a pretty similar story to you where, sorry, mom and dad, but same thing. As soon as I got to school and even going to school, there was that voice in the back of my head, like, why are you here? And the
Yeah.
whole time I was there, I just kept thinking about it doesn't feel right. Like there's that internal, like someone's like poking your insides, telling you to like leave
Yes.
is the best way
Yeah.
for me to put it. But I also want to preface it with this. There are plenty of people whose school is the right path for.
Yes.
But I don't
Yeah.
want people to take this as like, we're telling every kid out there, like, quit school, don't do your homework. Like, that's not what we're saying at all. But
Yeah.
there are definitely kids, teenagers, young adults who you may have been told that you're supposed to or that you should fit into a certain box. And if this resonates with you, if you have those little pokes on your inside telling you to like go do something else, I would say it's important to listen to that because the longer that I didn't, the more of an internal battle kind of brewed. And then as soon as I actually stepped into pursuing my passion, even though I started at like the bottom of the barrel. I felt so aligned and fulfilled. And because of that energy that's being pumped in from passion, you're able to rise up so much faster. And so that's kind of the first lesson I wanted to just kind of nitpick out of that whole thing. But then on top of this, I have a huge bias towards your story because I love adventure and I love travel and I just love like everything that comes with like what you did. But kind of run people through because I'm just gonna keep jumping in and like interrupting you very rudely on
Yeah.
my podcast. And but there are so many things about your story that I like to pull lessons from. So once you decided, all right, like I'm failing classes, I don't even care about showing up. This obviously is not the thing for me to do. What was kind of the next step? Because you realize, like, okay, this isn't for me. But then how did that turn into finding what is for you and finding your flow in life?
Yeah, I realized that, I guess I'll preface it with I'm a huge Pokemon fan. Well, like not anymore, but when I was a young kid, I would dream. I would literally daydream going to the backyard and pretend like I'm surrounded by Pokemon or whatever. And I love the idea of like Ash Ketchum just leaving his home and going around the region of Kanto and like having an adventure, meeting a bunch of friends along the way and just having a real life adventure like that thrilled me. And it was around this moment of basically like, okay, I already am failing all these classes, I'm just going to stop going to school. um it's around this moment that I started looking online of like, what am I going to do. Looked up tons of different ways to make money, like ad management through Facebook, whatever, social media marketing. um but I came across how this guy named Tim Ward. He's this guy on YouTube with only like 40,000 subscribers, but he makes videos on seasonal working, which is, there's businesses out there all across the world that only have their business open and running, like brick and mortar businesses, during a specific time of the year, or they just have an overflow of work, sort of like my brother who had the audiobook overflow. These businesses need to hire on an additional amount of people who are okay with only working a few months out of the year. And that really thrilled me because I remember breaking up with my first job, Carl's Jr., because they were paying me minimum wage, and at some point I realized my hour is worth more than $8.50. So I um I started applying for all these different seasonal jobs. And what was I getting at? I forgot.
Well, so you were talking about Tim Ward, you found the seasonal jobs thing. So we're kind of talking about like your next progression of finding your flow.
Yeah.
And at least like from what I remember when we were talking, you said you went up to Alaska for a while and you were working there. And I don't know if you worked like other jobs between that and whitewater rafting, but that's something kind of the lesson that I took from that. And maybe this will like jar something loose for you to dive into a little bit. But for me, a big part of it is taking that leap of faith. And there's always going to be a little bit of nerves, but like the excitement, if you allow yourself to lean in and go for it, will eventually far outweigh the nerves as soon as you land and you actually take the leap. And that's something that I'm really impressed that you consistently do is it sounds like you've kind of got your one foot in the kind of like technology space. I'm just going to label it that because I don't know
Yeah,
much
yeah.
about technology. And then you've got your other foot in the more like dynamic, adventurous space. And those fill very different cups for you. So how did you find the balance or the flow between that? Was it you worked for a while just in technology, or you worked for a while all doing cool adventurous stuff, or like how did you find your flow?
Yeah, so the seasonal work lifestyle really, I found it attractive because of the idea of like Like I said with the Carl Jr. thing, like I broke up with my first job. I felt terrible telling my boss, like, sorry, like I can't work here anymore. It felt like breaking up with a girlfriend. Like I legitimately felt so bad, like the days following after, and like those 2 weeks where you have to work there, knowing that like you're saying goodbye to all these people and leaving them in the crap hole that is a fast food restaurant. So the seasonal work lifestyle, thinking about like, okay, so there's like 3 or 4, 6 months where I can work at this place, and then it's like, hooray, the season's over. Like, no one feels bad that I'm leaving. Like, I'm actually expected to leave. So the leap of faith that I took was leaving San Diego. I was paying $700 a month to live in a bedroom, shared bathroom, shared kitchen, shared house. I left that, packed everything in my Ford Focus hatchback car, and started driving up to Alaska on the 15 freeway, which stretches all the way from San Diego up to Montana. And along this road trip, I've not secured a job in Alaska yet. So I am filling out tons of applications. To the advice of Tim Ward, the YouTuber, I used a website called coolworks.com to find all these different jobs in Alaska because you can organize by state. And I filled out maybe 20 applications. 4 of them got back to me, and 2 of them like accepted me. And I don't remember what the other one was, but I remember I decided to go with grill cook at Lyersville in Skagway, Alaska, which they call the armpit of Alaska because it's the little peninsula up in the crevice there. So that was the leap of faith I actually took. And I didn't have a passport at the time. So before leaving San Diego, I had sent in my birth certificate and my social security card and everything to whatever department manages the passport thing. And I wanted to have it come back to me by the time I needed to leave to Alaska. So it was about a week. And I had it expedited and everything, which like cost extra money. And it had not come back by the first of the month when my rent was up. So I was like, oh crap. Well, I'm leaving. And I asked like my mom to basically pick it up at this guy's house who I was renting from afterwards. So I was like, all right, well, I can just use my social security number and my birth certificate at the border as my 2 forms of ID. So I drive up there. When I reach the border and they ask for my identification, I reach back and I pull out my little folder that I keep all that stuff. And then it finally clicked. It's at the office where they do the passport stuff. So it's like I was just so like numbskull, not thinking straight. And I realized, oh crap, I'm at the Canadian border in Montana in like a town full of like maybe 50 people. I don't know. And it's like pouring rain outside too. The Canadian woman at the stand actually thought I was like running away from home or something. But yeah, but whatever was inside her decided to show me grace, and she let me into Canada. And I without any forms of ID or anything, I got into Canada. And I remember the first thing I thought as I was driving into the land of like kilometers per hour, not, miles per hour, was how am I gonna get back into America with no no IDs?
Yeah.
Because I look like some kid who just stole a Ford Focus. Like I hadn't showered in like 5 days. It's a long drive. But that was the leap of faith I took. And when I finally did get to Canada, the American people let me in through the border there. Skagway is only 5 miles from the Canadian border. It's landlocked by Canada. And when I got to Lyersville, the employee housing there was a cabin in the woods. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. All my coworkers there thought it was like terrible. They did not like it. They're like, this is like craziness. How can they even call this employee housing? We didn't pay anything for rent, which is one of the reasons why I liked it. But I took that leap of faith and I loved it because I was like, this is the adventure. I'm in the middle of the woods, no service. Like, this is crazy. And yeah, I loved it there. I was just a salmon grillman. My day consisted of this. I 6 a.m. I started filleting a bunch of fish. By 10 a.m., the guests start rolling in from the cruise boats in town. And I just, they step up to grill fill there at this giant wood burning grill, and I served them up their alderwood smoked sockeye salmon that I'd filleted that morning. And then at the end of the day, at around 5 p.m., all the guests had gone, and I split wood using like a hydraulic wood splitter. Not as cool as like the axe, but still, I'm like trying to replenish my wood pile, my wood wall. And that was like the whole day. It was like 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Insane overtime money. I made a crap ton of money in Alaska. It was awesome.
Yeah, dude, and it's a cool story. Like this, it's the best way for me to put it. And this is what really interests me about you is, first of all, you remind me of, you're like an embodiment of that John Lennon quote where he's like 5 years old and his teacher asks like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or what do you want to be when you're older? And he writes happy. And she says, you didn't understand the assignment. And he says, you don't understand life. And so I guess like if we're really like kind of like tying this all into a knot, I think that is probably the main reason I wanted to have you on here is so many people get caught up in this rat race of whether it is like the keeping up with the Joneses of always like using money you don't have to buy things you don't need to impress people who don't really care what you have. Or it's stressing about a job that really doesn't even fill you up in the first place, or whatever it may be along that path. I think more than anything, I'm kind of like having you come on here to like really put in people's face, why are you doing what you're doing? And just giving them that second to like take a step back and really think about, are you doing what you're doing just because you think you should, or are you doing what you're doing because it gives you a sense of purpose, which that's something we'll get into as well. Does it give you excitement? Like, does you talking about your job, your career, your next pursuit light you up and fill you with energy, or does it drain you? And I think people even listening to you up until this point, every time you're talking about these adventures or even like getting your laptop and doing the audio, you light up when you talk about it. And there's this enthusiasm around it that I think if people take a second and think about how they usually talk about their job, the majority will probably fall in the category of not having that same face when they're talking about it.
The sad truth. Yeah.
So, and that's kind of the next thing I want to talk about, because you did mention when we were kind of like messaging back and forth before this or leading up to it, that one of your main measuring devices for success is impact or legacy.
Yeah.
What are some things that you do to make sure that you're in alignment with that?
Yeah, so definitely the whole seasonal work lifestyle of working these, few months every year at different places, always traveling to a new place, being the new guy. That doesn't really, in my mind, leave a legacy. And in my mind, when I'm working these different jobs, I have the mindset of I'm selling my time or selling my labor to this, business owner in exchange for like liquidated, like, cash. Like that's what I'm selling my time for. And when it comes down to legacy, that's what I'm trying to make literally every day, 6 days a week. I'm trying to build towards the legacy, which is building my own thing. And that's the big idea surrounding, my Spotify page, Tenoshi, where I'm making music and trying to grow an audience. I'm trying to build something that I own so that I'm not working to build somebody else's empire like I am with, these different seasonal jobs, but I'm working to build my own empire and my own thing that can basically poop out a certain amount of money every month just by itself, and that really excites me. The idea of automated income where you're creating these things that are going to reward you over and over in the future, even if they don't reward you in a month from now or a year from now. It's all about the building, basically building a business, uh, so yeah, I think when it comes down to legacy, the way I try to keep myself in alignment with that is just consistently spending my free time or time that I'm not already selling to a business that needs my labor. I'm using that free time instead of playing video games or watching movies. Sometimes I'm sacrificing time I would have spent with friends to build my own business so that, and that's my idea of a legacy, is doing something that's going to last literally forever past the time I'm dead, and not only reward later me, but also reward my children and my children's children.
Heck yeah, dude. I vibe with that, obviously. Best self. Cool. So for people who are not aware, I'm actually not on my own computer, and it looks like we have a timer counting us down for 8 minutes left.
Oh no.
So we're gonna rapid fire this. So
Yeah.
one more question I have before I start to kind of wrap things up. This is just out of my curiosity as someone who also loves adventure. What is the craziest story you have from your various travels, jobs? Like one really like weird, crazy, quirky experience.
All right. Okay, you choose. Is it gonna be the one at Wildman, the rafting, or is it gonna be the one at Alaska?
We'll go
you choose.
Wildman because that's where we were.
Wildman?
So I'm
All
curious.
right. So yeah, so I worked at the Peshtigo location when I first started at Wildman last year. And it was in the beginning of the year during springtime. River's pretty high and it's ice cold too. Because it's all snow melt that's adding to that Peshtigo River. And these are class 2 and 3 rapids. At this time, I was in my own boat while guests were in this really small boat, but with 3 people guiding themselves. And this was one of my first times on the river. I wasn't leading the trip or anything. I was just with the guests, basically, helping people get off rocks. You know, boats will get stuck on rocks and that sort of thing. So this group is in what's called a mini. So there's 3 people in there, and they got stuck on a rock in what's called a boulder garden. And I was in my inflatable kayak called a ducky. I go up to them because I'm like the caboose of the train, and I hop out of my boat to push them off a rock, and I push them off, and my foot slips in between the rocks. That's called a foot entrapment. One of the most dangerous, probably the most dangerous part about rafting is standing up in rapids and getting a foot entrapment, because immediately the boat goes downstream. I'm left. I am the caboose of the train. I am the only person there. My foot is in there, and my knee is being basically my body weight is going all on my knee joint as the water is pushing me downstream, but my foot is stuck in those boulders. And I just have this moment of like, I'm gonna die here. I'm literally gonna suffocate underwater. Like, you don't realize how strong water is until you've got all these gallons of force, probably thousands of pounds of force pushing you down, and your body weight is just like being pulled down into the river, and just agonizing pain. Like I imagine it'd be more painful if it wasn't numbing cold water. But eventually, I think it was like 15 seconds is what I was told. It felt like a lifetime. My friend Liam paddles up in his kayak, just literally just gives me something to hold on to so I can push off against him and lift my foot out of the water. And with my PFD, I'm just floating down the water, just being so thankful because I thought I was about to die. It was a crazy experience. Made me respect the whole rule of never standing up in the rapids so much more. I literally thought I was gonna die there. It's crazy. So that's the craziest story for me.
I dig it. I mean, that sucks, and I'm sorry you went through that, but
I couldn't walk for a week.
one thing I have found is I am by no means advertising that someone should try to experience a near-death situation. I'm going to start with that. But like one thing I found is people who have been in a situation where they truly thought they were going to die have like a tenfold higher amount of gratitude for life.
That is so true.
That's
true.
something it was definitely my fault, but I had an incident where I almost slid off the edge of a cliff in Yellowstone. And it was just because a bush was in like the perfect place, about 10 feet from the edge of this like loose gravel to the drop off, that I slid into the bush and was able to like hobble my way around the cliff edge.
Yeah.
But same thing, 5 feet from no more Trevor, no more podcast.
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, when you look back at things like that, every sunrise, every sunset just has a little more color to it, a little more vibrant.
Yeah, that's literally one of the things that I think, I once again prefacing, like, don't, like, support, near-death experiences anyway, but you have so much more of a drive to live an impactful life that has a legacy, and you just start thinking about, "If I was gone, are people even gonna remember me?" And, it's crazy how much, desire and of ambition a person has once they truly realize I'm a flower that's withering in the wind. Like one day I'm not going to be here. And like, do I want people to remember me? How do I want people to remember me? Am I going to start living now like a better life just so that people remember me fondly? Treating others with respect. It's crazy.
Dude, yeah, it makes you realize that although obviously like if you live a healthy lifestyle, you've got plenty of time, but there are a lot of things that can happen that shorten that clock. And so like really making the most of every moment, knowing that like anyone could be the last one, just leads to a really like a much more beautiful life because you're so much more like immersed in it and not just like going through on autopilot. But I will leave it with that. We're definitely gonna have to do a round two, but like I said, it was a
We
weird
will.
situation. My laptop's not laptopping correctly. I'm borrowing a computer, but it's giving us the NASA countdown right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, I see
Phil,
it too.
thank you for coming on. We are absolutely doing a part two very soon when I can actually like go deeper, picking your brain on all this stuff. So I think we were just getting to the main course. The appetizer was nice,
Yeah.
but the main course is yet to come. Everybody listening, thank you for tuning in. As always, if there were things you agreed with, disagreed with, have questions about, that's why there's a comment box down below. If you like the video, if you like Phil, click the like button. And if you know someone who needs a little adventure in their life, that's why there's a share button. Send it to that person. Tell them they need a little vacation or go on to Cool Works or something. But Phil, thank you again for coming on. Much appreciated.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to part two.
Oh, yeah, it'll be here soon. All right. Till next time, everybody. Peace.